so long. Let's start how we usually start. I am Sharnice,
I'm Hampton Roosevelt Watson III.
and we are the Watsons. It's so nice to be back for a second season. We had to take a little brief break, but it's nice to be back in front of everyone.
Yep, long ass break. Actually,
It
when was
was
the last recording?
shit. I was pregnant. I'm not pregnant now, so it's been a while. Speaking of that, I feel like that's one of my first things I definitely want to talk about. Is just end of pregnancy to delivery to post. So let's run it down and just tell everybody what's been happening. So, how from your perspective, just how do you feel like our pregnancy went in general?
I think it was decently smooth, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
because you didn't have like a lot of morning sickness and a bunch of those, early on issues. So, you had like some throwing up, but it wasn't, running to the bathroom every 2 seconds. It was, you knew what it was. It was triggered by when you started eating as you got later in the process.
Mm-hmm.
So, it wasn't like a bunch of surprises.
Yeah. I would say the last month was probably the hardest month for me. I think everything was smooth sailing. I felt very lucky or very blessed that I just didn't have to deal with a lot of different things. I did have heartburn. I did have some back pain, but besides that, I didn't complain. But once third trimester hit, I started to blow up like a balloon. My feet was swollen like crazy. I tell people I didn't have any kneecaps at the end. It hurt for me to even stand up for like 5 seconds. I had like this permanent line in my feet. It was so bad. I couldn't sleep. I'm sleeping on the couch, going to the bathroom every 2 seconds. It was just pretty bad. I feel like I think I complained to you a little bit about it just because I felt like I couldn't do anything. You really had to. I'm thankful for him. He really stepped up.
Yeah, that not being able to walk or like just function, that was a lot. And it happened kind of like pretty like instant. You know what I mean? Like once the pre-eclampsia stuff started to really set in, like just not being able to move and function was like instant.
Yeah. And I think things happened pretty quickly. I think what happened, let's talk about what happened. Like he said, we had a baby shower, amazing. The week after that, I think once we had our baby shower, that was probably the end of my fun. I pushed it the week after. We went to this like huge cookout where Hamp DJs and does an amazing job each and every time. But after that, I was pretty much not doing well. I was worried because I know with preeclampsia, I have to look out for high blood pressure, but also retaining water. And those are like good signals to say that you possibly have preeclampsia. And with that said, I was going to the doctor. They said we're going to keep an eye on it, but nothing really happened until probably week 33. I'm home with Hamp. And they're telling me watch my blood pressure, and my blood pressure was pretty high to the point where I was just like, you know what, let me call. And when I called, they told me to come in, and me being stubborn, I'm just asking, is there anything I can do at home? I really don't want to come in. I'm 33 weeks, and my goal was to be pregnant till 35 weeks. And they told me
That was the doctor's goal, right? Like was the aiming point.
Yeah, that was our aiming point.
And the thing about it is, like, it doesn't seem like aside from not being able to move, it doesn't seem like there's like much wrong per se. But the blood pressure, having to monitor it, and it being 170, right? They just like come in. We had to go a couple times until you actually stayed there.
And that's exactly what happened. They brought me in. My blood pressure did come down, and this is without meds. So some of my doctor friends were very confused why I didn't get meds. But this is without meds. It was able to come down. But at that point, when I did go in, they told me they wanted me to stay. And that was me at 33 weeks in the hospital, staying there. And this is not by myself, but Hemp had to I guess just wasn't really prepared. I thought I was going to come in and possibly leave. They had me come in and they had me stay. And we still have things to do. We still have Royal every other day. Her mom was out the country. So we really had to really stick to our schedule. So part of it was him having to come back and forth and back and forth. And how was that for you?
No, I mean, it was what it was, right? Because you still had the obligations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even when Miss Taylor came through a little bit later was a blessing. But I mean, it just was what it was, literally. You leave, gotta take care of our responsibilities, and then you come back when you can come back.
Yeah.
You still gotta work and all that jazz. So it was just pretty matter of fact.
And I was very thankful that I did work from home and I was working from home. So for me, just because I was basically in the bed most of the time, I still was able to work for that week. And it wasn't until I was 34 and 3 days where, because I had twins, they say this thing where I am high risk, but then I'm not high risk at the same time. But because I had twins, they did have me go look at a high risk doctor. And the high risk doctor, very thankfully, was also at the hospital. So while the doctors are making the rounds, the high risk doctor was making the rounds. And I guess one day, even with the high blood pressure, it spiked. And they want to make sure I was healthy and the babies were healthy. And one thing I would want to say is it was really important for us to have a black doctor. I do want to talk about what that meant and how we did and how we came to find our doctor, but that'll be a little bit later. And one good thing I did, I talked to my doctor about what was one of my goals. And one of my goals were to have the kids vaginally. And how did you feel when, the doctor said at this point it was go time? Like my blood pressure spiked. I was 34 and 4 days at this point, and they said I had to go into labor.
I mean, I was kind of like relieved, honestly, because that means we were able to get out of there. Like, you was there for a whole week before anything popped off. So, when it was that, like, I'm like, all right, cool, And I was saying, remember, just cut them out.
You did.
It just seemed like it's so difficult. And they always say pushing 2 is difficult, and it was already high risk with the blood pressure spiking. I was just figuring like that would be the most expeditious, right? Because the only way to relieve the preeclampsia is to have the babies.
Sure.
So if you expedite them out, then you can start like the healing process and it just be over with.
Mm-hmm. And for me, I was kind of determined to see if we were able to have them vaginally. Obviously, if there was any risk to me or the babies, I would have said immediately C-section. With my doctor and the high-risk doctor, they said, hey, if you do want to have them vaginally, this was on October 2nd, we need to induce you now. And that was, to me, was a complete shock because it wasn't part of my plan at all. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not ready. Things just happened. I feel like just moved very quickly. Like we moved out of that room to the next room, which is labor and delivery. And to me, I felt like it was just a lot going on. I felt a little scared for a second because I don't know. I've never been pregnant before. I think this is the moment everyone worries about is having the baby. You want to get pregnant, you want to show off your bump, but when it comes to having babies, you just hear so much about it that it's scary. It's definitely very scary. I call my sister-in-law my brother, which is really funny because my niece, Shayna, who's 26, she has a beautiful son. She's also pregnant too, and she happened to be about to be in labor. So they're all the way in Virginia. I'm like, hey, I kind of need you too. What should they do? Thankfully, Shayna's like, hey, I had one before, just going up. So to have the support of him, my brother, my sister-in-law, and my niece was there. But then I forgot because I was induced. You just sit there until things happen, and things were not happening for a very long time. So how long would you say things were like not happening for?
12 hours, damn near a whole day. Like it's literally just sitting there. You're just sitting there, and there's process, right? Because they put, what was the medicine?
I was in magnesium.
The magnesium, and then you got the Pitocin.
Yep.
Right. Mm-hmm. So there was a little bit of activity, but for the bulk of the time you were in labor, it was boring as hell.
Yeah. I was trying to say like, oh yeah, I feel something. It was my back was bothering me. I was like, oh, my back's bothering me. And he's like, it has to be. And I'm like, no, 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 this is nothing. So it can't be me being in labor. Him actually the next day, you went to go play flag football. Flag football. I think he at like 11:30, the doctor was like, all right, you're literally like 1 centimeter dilated, and was kind of worried because you cannot be in labor for a very long time. So at one point we're like, hey, it's a possibility that you're gonna have to think about a C-section. But what I feel like what got the ball rolling was my water broke. Wouldn't you say?
I don't know. Not really.
I mean,
Because your water broke a while before the dilating started. Kinda. Like you was still like 1 or 2 centimeters when your water broke twice or whatever.
It did break.
Yeah, but it was still very.
Yeah.
Like they said that usually is the action, but it wasn't that action packed.
Well, I would tell you what is action packed though. When those contractions started coming, I mean, I must say I could not walk around because I was on magnesium and I had Pitocin. So anybody who's been induced knows those contractions are probably 10 times worse than just normal contractions.
I don't know. That shit was hilarious, bro. You didn't get through one contraction. Not one.
I was screaming for an epidural after the first one.
That shit. Oh, man. I tried to put a call into Hollywood to get you out there.
Oh, whatever.
Because that was a movie.
It hurt so. I've never felt a pain like that before. At that point, to me, I was like, if you want to cut them out, you want to do whatever you have to do to get this pain to stop, then you do it. I will say with the epidural, I was just so scared that I was going to move when they told me not to move. I was like, I was definitely crying because I was so worried that I was going to move when I shouldn't move like a contract. I was just like, please, I was praying, like, please don't have like a contraction during when I'm not supposed to move. And thankfully, God was on my side.
Yeah, it was all timing too. Like the lady knew what she was doing. So she did it pretty clean. I
will say I'm so thankful that the hospital was not packed because they say the minute you ask for an epidural, it could take up to an hour. I don't think I could have lasted an hour.
She got there, 20 minutes?
Yeah, 20 to 30 minutes. And I think with that said, I was dying. I don't think I would have been able to last an hour. So praise to all the women who are able to have babies naturally without any medication, because the way I felt, I don't know how people do it. Do not know.
I don't know why they do
it. That's true. Very true. And so thankfully he was here because it was still hard for me to move, and he was able to move me in and out the bed and things of that nature. So I'm so grateful that he was there.
Yeah, the nurses got to lift weights or something. They be weak as hell.
He was definitely moving me. What happened one time when you moved me, babe?
I was trying to roll you.
Yeah.
I put my hand in that goddamn what is it? Water break. That the most disgusting texture I've ever felt in my life. Like I had to just remain calm and make it in the bathroom.
What did it feel like?
That shit feel like slime, but slime that was alive at one point or some shit. It was, god damn, that shit was nasty. I was so disgusted, man. I was so disgusted. I'm like, man, fuck them kids, man. Golly, that was horrible. Jesus Christ, that was terrible.
I would say probably maybe around 2 o'clock. I think what I started to feel is that I felt like I had to take a shit. And I just kept pushing. I just kept pushing. Every time I felt like I had to take a shit. And I was like, maybe this will help. I had no idea if it would help because at this point, in a few hours, if nothing happened, we definitely have to have a C-section. And thankfully, the doctor came and he checked. And all of a sudden, he's like, you're 10 centimeters dilated. And that was a complete shock because we went from 2 centimeters to literally 10.
Yeah.
Very quickly. And so,
yeah, it was, we had to do whatever we had to do at that juncture, and you just kind of handicapped, but I mean, it is what it is.
In addition to being handicapped, we had a female, and then she had left, and it was a male. Mm-hmm. And I knew that wasn't going to really work too well with, him and I, and just, we all know how he feels about men. And
yeah, that's not a thing for real.
And so I had told her, I was like, I don't feel comfortable, but then things just move so quickly that.
Yeah, I mean, you got one doctor on call, so, what can you really do? You know what I'm saying? So we just had to roll with it. Now but the irony is that having the male doctor kind of worked, right? Because there was another female doctor in the room, but she doing all the clapping and shit like the nurses. Yeah, you could do it. He just like, good. And I'm just like, yeah, like all this goddamn clapping, I don't even know if we making progress.
That is true.
So he was just more like matter of fact.
I definitely pushed one time. I was like, that was good. He's like, that was all right. And I'm like, what? The way he said it would be something like how him did it was like, that was okay. And I'm like, that was okay?